month, he performs at the Improv at the Hard Rock Casino. From Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, Les the Plumber.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I was on the way to Miami Beach and I was thinking about the honeymoon couple that was on the way to the Fontainebleau Hotel. And as they were driving, he put his hand on her knee and she said, "You know, honey, you can go further. We're married now." So with that, he drove to Key West. I have been married for 48 years to the same woman. Where have I failed? Take my wife, please, please. I haven't spoken to my wife in 18 months. I don't like to interrupt her. My wife buys everything marked down. So last year she bought an escalator. I just got back from a pleasure trip. I took my mother-in-law to the airport. I got one problem. She came back. My mother-in-law is the most neatest woman in the world. She puts newspaper under the cuckoo clock. I told my mother-in-law, my house is her house. So last week she sold it. Do you know why old Jewish men die first? Because they want to. You know why Jewish divorces cost so much? Because they're worth it. I got remarried to my wife again because our divorces didn't work out. I went into the psychiatrist's office all dressed up with saran wrap. The psychiatrist looked at me and says, "Please don't say anything. I see you're nuts." When I was born, I was so ugly, the doctor turned around and slapped my mother. I went into the doctor's office. I told him I have a ringing in my ears. He said, "Don't answer." I went into the doctor's office, and I told him my foot hurts. And he says to me, "Limp." Then I went into the other doctor's office, and he took a look at me and he says, "You're going to live till 60. I says, "I am 60. He says, "See, I told you so." And then I went to the other doctor, and he told me, he says, "You only have 6 months to live." I said, "Doc, I can't pay your bill." He says, "All right, I'll give you another 6 months." I walked into a restaurant, and I said to the owner, "You serve crabs here?" He says, "Yes, I serve everybody." I made a killing on the stock market last week. I shot my broker. I walked into the bank, and I said to the banker, "Can you check my balance?" So he came out and he pushed me. And the other banker gave up his girlfriend because he lost interest. And did you know that Abraham Lincoln was Jewish? He was shot in the temple. I was standing on 42nd Street, and a man came up to me and asked me, "How do I get to Carnegie Hall?" I said, "Practice, practice, practice, and practice." I was standing in the street, and I see a man crying. I walked up to him. I said, "What are you crying about?" He says, "I just got married." I said, "Well, you should be happy." So he says to me, "I'm 85 years old. I just married a 21-year-old woman, and she's great." I said, "So what are you crying about?" He says, "I forgot where I live." I walked into the rabbi, and I said to the rabbi, "My wife is trying to poison me." So the rabbi says, "Don't worry, I'll call up your wife and call you back." The next day, the rabbi calls me back, and he says, "I spoke to your wife for 3 hours. Take the poison." Thank you, everybody. Happy Mother's Day.